All right, story of my life. Trying to figure out what I want to do. I think what Bruce just said is pretty much apropos for all of us. Trying to figure out what we want to do. I'm hoping we're live night right now. We've been messing around with our new software system here, and I've got a blank screen. Hey, now I see me, and I see Jack, and I don't see Bruce, but I know he's there. Hey, Jackie, how you doing, brother?
Bob, I'm super fantastic. How are you, my brother?
I'm good, man. I'm ready to talk some smack. I didn't know if we were going to be able to talk some smack or just look at black. I had a black screen there for a little while, but it looks like we're good now. By the way, how cool are the Snapchat little emoji dudes that we created of ourselves? They're little cartoon guys. That's not bad.
Hey, man, my guy's styling in the red chucks, which you can't see, I don't think, in this
No,
shot.
not in
But
this. Yeah, not on this one, right?
I mean, suit coat, V-neck, red chucks. Yeah,
You
it's
do the
got it
suit
all.
coat. You do the suit coat with the V-neck a lot, don't you?
I do, man. That's been my dress code for a really long time. Funny story. When I was in college, I
Yeah.
actually wore a suit and tie to class for a while. And
Really?
the older I get, the more I
Did you carry?
have
Were
to
you one of
struggle
the?
to get out of a
Were
t-shirt
you
every
one of
day to
those
put on something
nerds?
else.
Were you one of those nerds that carried a briefcase to class instead of a backpack?
Define nerd and define briefcase.
If you carried a briefcase, you're one of those nerds. That's how I'm defining it. You said you wore a suit to class in college. If you wore a suit and tie to class, you carried a briefcase. I know you did.
I can neither confirm nor deny
Where'd you go
that
to
on
college
certain
again?
days I may have dressed the part.
Where did you go to college again? I forgot.
I
If I ever
started at
knew.
Baldwin Wallace College, a
Yeah,
private school
yeah, we all know Baldwin
in the
Wallace.
greater Cleveland area,
Yeah,
Yellow Jackets,
yeah.
and finished up in my hometown at Ashland University.
Ah, okay. All right, very good.
Go Eagles.
Well, so anyway, you were wearing the jacket and tie. Now you downgraded to the V-neck with the jacket. I'm just dressed in what I pretty much wear most of the time is a hoodie and a pair of jeans. That's just kind of my thing. I would have my Let's Go Brandon hoodie on and my little cartoon guy there if I could have found a way to navigate that. But you're stuck with whatever Snapchat gave us. By the way, we're not 12. We use Snapchat. Jack, you didn't even have a Snapchat app downloaded until I made you do this to create your little guy, right?
Bro, you had to sell me out like that?
No, you're. I'm not selling you out at all. You're an adult. You didn't have Snapchat. This is really not for adults. It's a kid thing. I had it only because you can probably guess to keep snapping back and forth with my kids. That's all, because that's all I have on my Snap, group or whatever. Is just my son is away at college, my daughter's away at college. They Snapchat, so they said, "Dad, you got to have one of these. This is how we're gonna, connect every day." Blah blah blah. And so that's the only reason I had my little dude there. And when we were trying to think of a logo to put this podcast together, I said, "Why don't we do the Snapchat dude?" And Jack was like, "The what? The what?" That's
I
not
was like, the
selling you out.
what?
Like, yeah. I think,
Yeah, this stuff's going to come into my purview. My daughter's going to be 10 in December. And she's
yeah.
asking for a phone for birthday
Uh-oh. Is it
or
time?
Christmas. Man, oh man, I don't know, bro. It's a hard one for me. It depends what Santa Claus says.
Do me a favor, make
Yep.
sure you're not going to allow her to have TikTok on that thing, right? I
No.
mean, we haven't talked a lot about China, and amongst the many things that we talk about on Talkin' Smack. And by the way, welcome to everybody who, if you're watching us on either Facebook Live or YouTube Live, you can comment to us. And I don't know if the restream comment thing is going to be working or not. We're
Yep.
trying something new today, and so we might be able to see your comments on the restream page. I don't know, but if you've got a question, if you've got a topic you want to hear us smack about, if you've got something you want to complain about, whatever, throw them up there. That's the reason we're doing this live through streaming as many platforms as we can before it goes to the podcast, recording where you can watch it and listen to it as a download. But if you want to be a part of what we're talking about, you got questions or anything else you want us to talk about, go to our Facebook pages, either one of us, and drop a question or drop your topic or whatever you want us to talk about in the comment section. And that's just kind of something we like to do. And we do this every Monday and Wednesday, or excuse me, Monday and Thursday. Yeah. At 7:00. So, try to bookmark that or put it on your calendar if you really do want to be interactive with us on this whole thing.
Yeah,
So,
and you can
Jack,
also download these on or actually any place that you listen to podcasts. I think Bruce would tell us that anywhere that you
Yeah,
can get
yeah.
access to a podcast,
Apple
make sure you
Podcast,
type in Talking Smack
Spotify,
with Bob and Jack.
Podbean, all of those, right?
You got it.
Um,
Bob, go ahead. I cut you off, brother.
no, I was just going to say the part about China and the TikTok thing. I mean, it's confirmed. Donald Trump warned before he left office. He was talking about the danger of TikTok because it's a complete, privacy destroying, metadata gathering platform from China. And Lord only knows what they're collecting from millions and millions of Americans, because it is a very addictive platform. You just scroll video, and all kinds of goofy stuff in it. Some of it's very funny. Some of it makes you think, and you just get caught up in it. And everything you hover over, the algorithm takes note of. They're looking at everything they can to learn about you, and then they're looking for patterns in the demographics of people, and Lord only knows what they're going to do with it. But Trump said that on the way out, and now, Jack, that he's gone, even prominent Democrats, many in the Biden administration, are admitting and saying TikTok is dangerous. TikTok is something, I can't remember who it was, maybe said not only should you delete the TikTok app from your phone, they said when you do that, get rid of your phone and get a new phone, because it's already been pulled. There's so much data that is being stored, that is being accessible, even if you're not using the TikTok app anymore. So I'm not saying millions of people are going to do that, man, but I'm alarmed by it because everybody I know has got it.
Yeah, man. Mike Pompeo said the same thing. I remember him talking maybe a year and a half ago about the threat that China possesses, and one of those threats being the collection of all the data through TikTok. And I remember hearing a long time ago, if you're not paying for this, you're the product. So you are the product for China, your data, and everything that they're going to do with it, which, by the way, is exactly why I never did the family tree DNA testing, even though you had to pay for it. It's why I never did the swab test with my nose, because that information is going somewhere in a database, and that just scares the hell out of me.
Totally agree. Felt the same exact way, and that's why I don't let anybody have my DNA. I'm not going to put it on file anywhere because I don't know where it's going and what it might be used for. So I'm with you on that. All right, so Jack, I started my radio show with this morning, and I want to kick it with you. No pun intended, because I abhor kicky ball. I don't like it. It is not my thing. I think it is the most boring thing. The old adages of watching paint dry or grass grow are exciting to me. I'd rather sit there and stare at my dryer and wait for the clothes to dry before I would sit in front of a TV and watch guys run around for 90 minutes, or sometimes 93 minutes, or sometimes 97 minutes, whenever they decide the game is over, and they just kind of do it arbitrarily, running around for that long and getting maybe one score, or maybe 1-1, or none to none. I don't like kicky ball. It's not my thing. It's as lame as it gets. But the story here is important because, Jack, the women's soccer team, the women kicky ball players for the United States, which apparently won the last 2 World Cup championships, they were making a lot less money than the men, who didn't do so well. And for the last few years, we've been hearing people screaming, and mostly the women screaming, how come we don't make as much as the men do? We're better than they are. First of all, they're not. I remember a few years ago, the women's kicky ball national team played like some group of 15-year-old boys and got smoked like 7-0 or something stupid like that. Bunch of 15-year-old boys. So they're not better than the men, but they're more successful than the men in their particular sport, or their tournament. But the way I understand it, they don't have very many people watching it. And when people don't watch it, there's less revenue, less ad revenue, less ticket revenue. So you kind of get what you earn. Well, they griped and complained and bitched and moaned. And now apparently this is what I saw today. New York Post reporting that under the new equal pay agreement, the women's team gets half of what the men make in this tournament. And now that the men won a couple of games, they're getting some $13 million, I guess, that is locked in. And the women, who are sitting home watching it on TV, get $6.5 million of those dollars. They split it 50-50. And I'm trying to figure something out here, Jack. Is this not socialism? I can't think of another word for it. but they're literally taking somebody else's money because they don't make enough for their own, all in the name of equity. Everything has to be equal in the outcome, even if they don't generate as much money on their own. They get to share the same money with the guys who do generate more income because more people are interested in watching it. What am I missing here? Make that make sense.
You're not missing anything. In fact, you just took the buzzword, right? I was thinking the whole time you were talking, this is the difference between equality and equity. And very few people understand it. So, of course, there are a lot of people who are really perturbed that there's a certain group of people who make more money and there's a certain group of people who make less money because they truly believe in equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. And that's a ship that I think has sailed, particularly with a certain age demographic in our country. And I pray that someday we get that back. But the question I always ask is, what's the opposite? What if we actually took people at their word there and we let that play out? How long would that last? And I'll give you an example. I think we should reverse the results of an election because the person who got the most votes, that doesn't really count. We need equity in outcome. So we should just do away with elections. Okay, obviously I'm talking tongue in cheek, but the point is,
I don't like that comparison because, and I know you're being tongue in cheek, but you're talking about an election versus market demand.
I'm talking competition.
Elections. I know, but there's a big difference there because elections, everybody gets a vote and they're totaled up, as opposed to market demands, which is who is willing to pay money to see one thing versus another. That is not in play. Everything in terms of an election is free. So I don't like the comparison. I know what you're trying to say with it, but I don't like the comparison. The thing, I pointed this out on my own Facebook today, and I talked about it on the radio too. You know, to me, just to simplify things, if a lot of people buy tickets to watch the men play kicky ball and to watch it on TV and the ratings are high there, and therefore the advertising dollars are big there, and let's say the men generate $100, just to make this very easy. And when the women play kicky ball on the World Cup stage, very few people watch it and very few people see it, and they generate, say, $20. So the way this is set up now, the men take their 100 and the women take their 20 and they pull them together and then they split it and each side gets $60, even though the men generated 5 times more revenue because more people are interested in watching them than they are interested in watching the women. That is straight up socialism, and I want somebody to tell me how that can be justified. And by the way, they went to an arbitrator over this. The women have been complaining for years, like I said, and the men agreed to this. Why? I have no idea. Because they're giving away half of their money when they absolutely, the other side isn't doing anything to earn it.
Yeah, that's their prerogative, I guess. I mean, the people who love this are the people who are on the lower end of the output, right? So if you're producing less revenue, then you're happy.
Yeah, if you're generating less revenue.
But this was something that I think was dealt with. We just went through Thanksgiving, and I think this was dealt with when the settlers came here from across the pond. Wasn't it Jamestown? Wasn't that where they tried socialism? Yeah. And what ended up happening was that the younger, more productive members of that culture said, wait a minute, I'm working longer hours, I'm getting more done, and I'm getting paid as much as, a guy my age who probably is as productive as me. And by the way, my wife is doing all of this work for other families, and wait a minute, this isn't right. If I'm putting more out, I want more back.
Right.
And here's a news flash. We're kind of hardwired that way. So I hear where people are coming from, but I don't think that's a sustainable model because I'm going to go back to the question I asked earlier. What happens if we do that? If it's played out and we're forced to be compensated an amount that's well below what we produce, What's the result? Bob, you know that answer.
You're talking about it from sustainability and results, though. I'm talking about it from just a fundamental fairness standpoint, Jack. And to me, that takes precedence here.
Bob,
Let me.
I'm going to
Go ahead.
interrupt you there.
Yeah.
You're way ahead of the curve on this. You're pretending like the people who accept this understand fairness. We're dealing with hedonists. We're dealing with people who want what they want, when they want it, the way that they want it. There's no fundamental concept of fairness. There's no fundamental concept of here's a fundamental truth. Here's something that we live from and we know produces results. These folks want what they want. They want it right now, and they'll do whatever they need to get it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you're not wrong, but I want to call them out for it. And I want to give you an example. I don't know how long he's been on TV, probably not as long as I've been on radio. But in all of the time that I have been on radio and Don Lemon has been on television, I think I have agreed with him exactly 0 times. But that is about to change. Don Lemon was on his morning show this morning. You know, the one he got bumped to because his primetime show was failing so miserably on CNN. So now he's a co-host with 2 female co-anchors in the mornings. And Don Lemon this morning on CNN, I had to read this because God knows I'm not watching it. But Don Lemon was arguing with his co-anchors, Caitlin Collins and Poppy Harlow. I have no idea who either of them are, but apparently they're his co-anchors. And he actually was arguing the correct point here for a change. And they weren't having it. He was saying, and the women were arguing that male athletes earn more because the media gives men's sports a bigger platform. And Don Lemon was arguing, saying, no, this is a capitalist. Can you believe this? Don Lemon arguing in favor of capitalism, Jack. He said this is a capitalist society and it benefits products that are in higher demand. And in this case, men's sports are in much higher demand than women's sports. And he had to argue with them, and they continued to say, but the girls are better. The women kickball ball players won the World Cup twice. They're better. They have to make more. And Jack, they just don't understand it. And I want to just scream. And that's the reason I want to talk about it with you. It is not about being better. It is about being more attractive to an audience that was willing to pay to watch you. If they're watching
Bingo.
you, I throw it this way, and Poppy Harlow said big media companies are to blame for the lower popularity of women's sports because they won't put it on TV as much. She's literally backwards. If they were good at it and more entertaining, they would be put on TV all the time. Because guess what TV people want to do? They want to make money. And they'll make money if they put popular things on screen. And then advertisers say, we want to reach some of those people who are watching that. If they were better at it and more entertaining at it, they'd be making more money. So, Jack, my last point on this, and I just had to throw this at somebody online. If you want to do this from a female-male standpoint, Don Lemon's on TV screaming, I'm not sexist. I'm not sexist. I mean, how about that? That's just so funny.
Sad that he has to explain it that way.
Right? I know. So I did it this way. Taylor Swift is arguably the highest paid musician in the world. I think, didn't something happen like a couple of weeks ago where she had like all 10 of the top 10 songs in the Billboard chart or something on a certain day? It had never been done before, something stupid like that. Taylor Swift sells out 20,000 seat arenas at $150 a ticket. I'm no math major, so I'm not going to try, but that's a lot of money. Joel Smith plays the local bar down at the corner on Saturday nights for $3 cover charge. They're both singing. They're both singing and trying to draw a singing audience. In the mindset of those CNN lunatics and in the mindset of the women's kickball players, Taylor and Joel ought to be pooling their money, their revenue together and splitting it evenly, right? Because they're both singing, just like they're both playing soccer. The fact that nobody wants to watch or listen to Joel and everybody wants to watch or listen to Taylor should be irrelevant. Equity demands they pull their money together and split it evenly, right or wrong.
Well, according to their worldview, that's exactly right, Bob. But the problem with this worldview and the problem with many of their worldviews with hedonism is you can't apply it to different situations because it doesn't make a lick of sense.
No, it doesn't. Hey, Jack, this is cool, dude. Are you seeing the little chat thing on the side of the window there? It's
Let
showing
me
up
see.
on our
There it is,
restream
man.
page. Yeah, it's
Hey,
so now
Trey. What's up, Josiah,
and
Rachel,
and looks like some
Andrea?
of
Good
them
to
are
have
coming
you.
from Facebook. Well, I think they're all coming from Facebook, maybe. Some actually from Restream, and don't forget we're on YouTube too. You can watch us there and on Twitch too. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and by
Uh,
the way, Bob, I want to mention today's episode is sponsored by the Freedom Foundation. The Freedom Foundation is the creator of optouttoday.com, the number one tool to free government employees from union bondage. So go to freedomfoundation.com to learn more and make a 501c3 tax deductible donation. And when you do, they'll double it if you put Talking Smack in the notes. So thank you, Freedom Foundation.
Love it. Thank you so much to that fantastic sponsor. By the way, Andrea says I don't have Snapchat. LOL. Most people don't. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm not a kid, but I have it for my kids. So don't make fun of me. You know what? Just don't judge me.
Rachel, I'm with you. Kicky ball cracks me up every time he says it.
That's all I
Kicky
can
ball.
think of to call it. I
I just
refuse
want
to
to let you know
acknowledge
Whitney was a goalie, so I cannot laugh publicly.
hockey.
No,
Hockey?
she was a soccer goalie. She was
Oh, a kicky
a
ball goalie.
fantastic soccer goalie.
Oh, now if she was on the ice, I'd have had a little more respect for her, because that's a little different kind of goalie,
She
and it's a
has
little bit of a
cat-like
different.
reflexes, man, and long reach. She was an incredible
Oh,
goalie.
holy crap! Um, we plan our little topics to talk about here. Hey, look, my
Hmm.
arm disappears with my virtual background. How funny
How
is that?
about that?
Um,
The Matrix.
the Matrix. Um, I have to do this. This was not planned, Jack. Did you see what the NHL commissioner said apparently a few days ago about where he sees the league in 5 years?
No, I did not.
Dude, the NHL is outwoking the NBA and then the NFL and MLB. It's
Is that
unbelievable.
possible?
I know, right? People, if you're checking us out on Facebook or Twitter, or whatever, or YouTube or whatever, drop a comment on here if you saw this, because I'm going to try to do this from memory. So if you have it more accurate, they declared their goal for the NHL in 5 years. This is the commissioner, Gary Bettman. In 5 years, they want the league rosters to represent the communities in terms of all sexes. He said all first, then later corrected it to both sexes, but in terms of sexes and ethnicity, race, color, etc. So in other words, their goal in 5 years is to make the NHL less white. The NHL is very, very white, and that's largely because hockey is so dominant in much more, in some European countries where there are a lot more white people, Scandinavian countries, European countries, whatever. Canada here, whatever the case. It's a very low, it shouldn't matter because, the NBA, of course, is very, very overwhelmingly African-American dominated, or just I guess black dominated, we'll say, because of the influx of so many players from overseas these days. But it shouldn't matter one lick. But Jack, what that means is if they're saying that's their goal, meritocracy is now out the window in that sport. Does that mean, are they going to have an affirmative action quota? Each roster must have at least X number of females on the NHL ice. Are they going to do each roster must have X number of trans males on the ice? White, black, Hispanic, Asian? I mean, I'm not making this up. This is what he said. And I'm thinking to myself, sports are the ultimate meritocracy. The best players make the league, and the best players of them make the most money. And they want to try to affirmative action the National Hockey League, dude. Are you much of a hockey fan?
No.
I'm
I
not
have
either. I
very
used to
few
be.
sports: football, baseball, wrestling. That's
Okay.
it.
Amateur or pro?
Wrestling, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking off the top rope wrestling.
You're a Roman Reigns
not
fan.
not
Come on.
Hollywood wrestling. I'm talking about, the guys that
Yeah, I got you.
look like the Greco-Romans back in the day. Real wrestling.
But how insane, right? I mean, like I said, meritocracy. Nobody complains that there is only one white defensive back in the National Football League. There's one white cornerback. Of all 32 teams and two cornerbacks starting and probably a good 4 or 5 more on the roster, there's one white guy. Nobody complains. Want to know why? Because the belief is not enough white guys are fast enough to play cornerback and cover the wide receivers. That's the reality of it. And you know who gets those jobs? The best players. The fact that they're all black is irrelevant. The best players, the ones, right?
The end of sports,
with
Bob.
the merit. Thank you.
The end of sports. No, you ready? I'm about to drop it.
Drop it.
I want
Like it's
10% of everything after this. It's no longer sports. It's Rex. Race and sex. That's it. It's the Rex competition.
It's a shame.
No more sports.
But it's not wrong. You're not wrong.
You know,
now you've got a daughter. You just said she's going to be 10 soon, right?
She'll be 10. Yep.
She's an athlete, right?
She is. She actually just earned her white orange belt tonight in jiu-jitsu. So congratulations, honey.
If they wanted to put her on a boys team in whatever sport she's into, and I know you said she's into martial arts, and that's great, but I mean, if it gets to team sports and they want to put her on a boys team because the goal here is to, make the teams all look like the community rather than on a girls team where she can compete with other people like her, what would you do?
Well, let's be realistic. At 9, almost 10, she's going to kick some boys' asses because girls mature faster than boys.
Oh, they grow faster, no doubt.
Yep. And so
but
there's
as
a
she
point
gets
beyond
into,
which, though, the lines cross and they never
though.
cross again, right? They never catch up again. So, yeah, there is a point beyond which I think her competing against boys could be dangerous. Although in the martial art that she's in now, she does roll with guys all the time.
Yeah.
But there is a point where men are stronger, men are faster. That's not sexist. That is. I mean, look at his or her name, Leah Thomas, whatever. It's a proven fact. So, yeah, I think if it's a contact sport, there's danger. If it is not a contact sport, then there's a disadvantage. And I don't think it's fair. But, man, I don't even comprehend how we are where we are today. I really don't. Because understand, I think, feel, and act a certain way. And I feel like I'm surrounded by a lot of people who, remember that old book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus?
Yeah.
I feel like the way that a lot of people think and feel today in our country is so far lunatic. I mean, I don't even know how to argue this, because even making a salient, logical point to you, Bob, that doesn't hold water with people. It's like arguing with a drunk. It's like arguing with a bipolar narcissist. You're just never going to connect the points. So sometimes I get so exasperated because I'm like, man, I'm just like talking to myself here. I can make logical sense all day long, but they're not listening.
They're not. No. And you're right. Like just with what you said a second ago, when you said, is it his or her? You're playing into the game. Leah Thomas is a biological male. Leah Thomas has male genitalia. Leah Thomas has male bone density, male lung capacity, male muscle tone, strength, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a male who decided to ruin females' swimming experiences in the NCAAs. Let's just call people what they are, not these fantasies or whatever their personality tells them they wish that they could be. All right. You ready to move on? Or you got any more on that?
Yeah, there's a really interesting comment from Bridget Novak. Did you see that one, Bob?
No, bring it up. Hit me with it.
Change the argument from gender-based to race-based. Hypothetically, if the league was split by race and the people of color won but had no audience, and the people of no color had the draw and made the money, would that be justified? Things that make you go,
Justified in whose eyes? Because in my eyes, the answer would be the same. The meritocracy is in full effect here. If you are more entertaining at your sport, I don't care if you're black or white or male or female, if you're more entertaining and more people want to watch you and you generate more income, then you keep more income. If you are great at your sport, but nobody's watching, No, you don't get to take money away from people that are being watched. It's just that simple. That dude that I said who sings down at the corner bar on Saturdays for $3 cover charge might be amazing, but if only 15 people know it and he makes $45 on the $3 cover charge, sorry, you don't get any of Taylor's money. I don't care how good you might be. I don't care how black or white you might be either. If you're, and I like that, Bridget. By the way, thank you for the great comment.
But it's the crossover, right, that we talk about when you bring in something that is red hot relevant, but the opposite of the direction they're going. You kind of go, well, wait a minute, what if that was the case? But it goes back to my point of hedonism. You can't argue things logically with this group. It's about whatever it is, making up ground. I mean, frankly, if you're going to make amends for past racist or homophobic behavior, then in their mind they're justified in committing racism and they're justified in committing sexism. I mean, that's it. That's the only way you make up ground.
Yeah, in the warped world of the woke. That's exactly right. By the way, that was really cool, Bruce. Bruce, our engineer guy, big Bruce McPhee. That was phenomenal. He pulled up that Bridget comment there. Did you see it? Made it full screen. That was cool. I like it. Solid. This is our first time doing this with a new platform. We're normally doing this face to face, so we're just kind of experimenting here. So you're learning along with us. We're kind of guinea pigging you as the first audience to do it this way. All right, Jack. This one I think is going to be fun because you teased me with it before we came on live, and I told you to shut up. Don't tell me now. Tell me when we're live. According to a new story, this is, I don't know if it's a survey, I'm guessing it's a survey that was done rather than just writing something saying we heard a lot of people. The New York Post apparently is cited here as one of the sources for this, that apparently a disproportionate number of Gen Z parents are refusing to allow their children to believe in Santa Claus. Why? Because they'll be traumatized when they find out that he's not real. Now, I've heard of snowflakes before, no pun intended with Christmas here, but holy God, you're going to ruin the experience of Christmas morning and Santa bestowing you with gifts, and 'twas the night before Christmas, all because someday the kid's going to grow up? Are you for real? Jack, tell me, I know the Gen Z, demographic is being raised a little bit differently and have been raised a little bit differently. And I don't know what we're calling their generation of kids after that. Maybe just Generation Snowflake. I don't know, but holy goodness. I mean, really? How do you feel about that?
I look at what the argument is from the Gen Z audience, and the two themes that I continue to see. One is the kids are going to be traumatized once they realize that Santa Claus isn't real. So there's the trauma argument. And then there's this concept of, well, I don't want my kid to think that he or she is good or bad and on a list, and so they don't get gifts if they're bad and they get gifts if they're good. So, that makes sense because they don't like meritocracy. But I will be real vulnerable here and tell you there was a moment early on in my daughter's life that I thought, do I want to let her believe that there's a Santa Claus? Because I don't want to put myself in a position later in life where she looks at me and goes, Dad lied to me for 10 years. Whether Santa Claus is real or not, that was my struggle. And, I'll be able to explain away, hey, it's just kind of a mythical thing, and here's why we do it, and here's why we don't do it. But for me, it was more about what is Christmas really about? And if I'm being really frank with you, I've always struggled with the whole Santa Claus thing. Christmas is about Jesus to me. So there are some issues that I've had with the, commercialization of Christmas and the pop culture of Christmas, but I digress.
First of all, there's room for both. Second of all, Bridget is awesome. Bridget just hit us again with wait until they grow up and find out the government doesn't work in their favor. That's trauma. That is outstanding. Kids are going to grow up and learn all kinds of things that they didn't know when they were kids. That's what makes them kids, Jack. You're killing me. Here's the other thing.
Hey, I didn't go in that direction.
All right, but you were
And
close.
by the way, real quick,
yeah.
Bridget, the best way to do that, we've done this, is when the kid works and you give the kid $10, give it to him in ones, and keep $4 and tell him, well, hey, that's 40%. It's going to pay your income tax, your state tax, your local tax, and then you have the rest of that for you.
Now, do you do that?
Figure out
do you
really
do that
quickly.
Do you do that to your 9-year-old?
Yes.
You give her an allowance, but then take some of it back?
She goes, wait a minute. Is that why they called him taxing Tim Ryan? I said, that's exactly why they called him taxing Tim Ryan.
So you actually do. You take your daughter's allowance and you take some of it away from her and saying that's tax.
We don't do allowance. She works.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. They
do a little bit of work, and we
when I was younger, we called them chores, and you got an allowance for your chores. Okay. Yep. But you actually do that. Wow. I was going to say, because, those are things you learn as you get older, obviously. There's some lessons you don't have to learn when you're 9 or 8 or whatever, in my opinion. But back to the issue of the Santa thing. The reason why, but I hope nobody's watching with their computer screen on right now and your kids are around as we talk about this. Let's be smart here, okay? I'm assuming we're talking to an adult audience. If I tell my kid, look, I want to be straight with you right up front. There's no fat, jolly guy other than your dad. There's no fat, jolly guy coming down any chimneys and bringing you presents from all around the world. It's just something that is told to kids. You tell that to your kid, and guess what you've done? You've ruined it for every kid in their class, because now the discussion is on, there's no Santa. My dad told me there's no Santa. Now you're ruining the whole thing for everybody. It's just, stop. Let kids believe in tooth fairies. Let kids believe in Easter bunnies, even though it has nothing to do with the risen Christ. And let kids believe in Santa. And yes, take them to mass at Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day and all the other holy days of obligation if you're a Christian or Catholic or whatever. But then let them enjoy the magic of Santa as well. And guess what? When the time comes, I've never known. Do you remember, Jack? Do you remember when you found out? Were you ticked at mom and dad? You lying SOBs? Or were you like,
I saw my mom
was you
eating
guys
the
all
cookies.
along?
I'm like, what is she doing?
What, you woke up and came down and saw her?
She was eating the cookies, man.
And that's how you found out?
That's how I found out. Scarred.
So I
was like, are you kidding me?
Well, that might explain a lot about you. No. No, but seriously, in all seriousness, I don't know anybody when they found out was mad at mom and dad. Instead, it was like, oh, no way. I mean, oh my gosh. And by the way, since you're talking about teaching your daughter about, money and taxes and so on and so forth, once the kids find out it is you, do you know what a hero you become when they realize how much money you've been spending on them throughout the years? Because this wasn't being built in an elf's workshop, but that you're going to Toys R Us for them and spending your entire, month's paycheck on them. You get a little
net
cred
of
there
taxes.
too. Yeah, you get a little extra cred there when they find that out. Hold on a second. Let's see. Trey says what? Pop that one up there, Brucey. I would challenge that point, Bob. I want my kids to know that their parents worked hard to make sure. See, there you go. That's what I was talking about. To make sure they have a great Christmas and not give credit to some fake fat guy. Also, there is the lying to your kids for years. But that's what I mean. Once they find out, after they have the magic of Santa came, which you can never, don't take that away from any kid. Once that they're old enough to realize, then they're looking like, that was you guys all along. Just the hug you get from thank you for all of your generosity. That it just comes, it's a little bit of a delayed gratification, right?
Yeah, I see that. I still struggle with it a little bit, man, honestly. But, hey, the bottom line is, Bridget says, parenting should be left to parents, their choice. Amen.
Indeed.
Yep.
One more quickie from Rachel. I'm 36. We grew up not believing in not believing in Santa or the Easter Bunny, etc., and we were okay. We had so much appreciation for my parents getting us the presents. Again, I agree with that, but just delayed gratification. I've gone back and forth with it for my daughter, but have chosen to focus on Jesus for Christmas. Okay, good on you. Everybody has that right, obviously. but the last point I'll make about it, since we're talking about the lying thing, and you don't want to be lying to your kid for 10 years or however many years it is until they find out about Santa. Um, does your daughter have pets, Jack?
We have Newt and Neville. We have two parakeets.
Did you have pets when you were a kid, particularly
I did. And by the
dogs?
way, when she's with her mother, they have like 3 dogs, a cat, and 8 chickens.
Okay.
So she has tons of pets.
And what about you? Did you have dogs or any pets growing up like that?
I had a
I'm
couple
not
of dogs
dismissing the
growing up.
parakeets. Don't get me wrong, by the way, but the whole man's best friend thing. It's a really, really, really hard thing when a family loses a dog. And by the way, I've got cats in my house because my wife is a cat lover, and that's what I married, so that's what I'm stuck with. But I love dogs. I think dogs are just a little different. That's why they call them man's best friend. So there's just something about the attachment. And maybe you do the attachment with a bird or with a cat or whatever it is. The point being,
Yeah.
my question is, when they die, what do you tell your kid? Is there a dog heaven? Is there a parakeet heaven? What do you
No.
tell your kid?
No, it's good life, good time. Be grateful. That's it.
So you don't tell them that it's okay because little Rover is now in doggy heaven, and someday you'll see him when you get there too. Any of those kind of
No.
things? Because that's a lie. Well, let me rephrase. We don't know. I believe in heaven and the afterlife because Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and He saved us all from our own mortal sins, and I believe that. But I don't know that there's a dog heaven, and I don't know that dogs are going up and going to be waiting for us there. But we tell our kids that, most of us anyway, that there's, it's okay because as they cry and they cry themselves to sleep, you tell them that their kitty's in heaven now. It just makes them feel better. Sometimes we say things to our kids, even if they're not true or we don't know if they're true or not, just to make them feel better. And I don't consider that to be a lie that is, a 10 commandment breaker. It's not a bearing false witness kind of lie that I think is a bad thing. I think sometimes you say things to make kids feel good.
Yeah, I'm striking out here, Bob. I'm I don't do the doggy heaven thing, and truth be told, I'm not an animal person. Like I know a lot of people love dogs and man's best friend. I love people.
Yeah.
And part of it is I'm allergic to cats and allergic to long-haired dogs. So
I'm the one striking out then. I'm sitting here trying to convince you and make all of these important points of like, yeah, that's true. You can't relate at all. You don't like dogs. You're allergic to them.
I liked them when I was little, and then they'd lick my face. I'm like, this is great. And then later on, you realize they lick their butts, and you're like, yeah, this is not so cool. I'm not down with this.
They've got enzymes on their tongue though. Everything that they touch is cleaned.
Sure,
okay?
they do.
They do.
Everything they have is curable with ointment. It's going to be
Why
okay.
why do you think they can eat a dead animal and eat its innards? A cat can kill a rat and eat it and digest it and not have any problem. You do it, you're dead because they have different abilities. They're different, their
'Cause
enzymes
God
break
made
things
them that
down.
way.
They did. He did. Yes, that's exactly right. My goodness. I feel like I'm striking out here. All right. If you've got any more thoughts on that, you can keep dropping them in the comments section, but we're going to move on. So we've talked a little bit about this on Monday's Talkin' Smack, Jack, about what's going on in Columbus on Saturday, the holodrag. You talk about taking Christmas and warping it, or taking the holidays and warping them. They're doing their holodrag event. It's a church. It's the Universal Unitarian Church or Unitarian Universal Church or whatever it is of Columbus. It's being hosted by a school. So a school for little elementary kids is getting together with a church, which is supposed to be for kids' faith, and going to introduce them to not naked, but dudes dressed in sexually provocative women's clothing for holodrag, because this is going to benefit who and how and why. No one at all that I can understand. And there's going to be some protests. The Proud Boys are going to be there protesting. I've got all kinds of articles in front of me where the drag groomers who are trying to groom little kids don't test me on this about the word groomer. Yes, if you just wanted to read to kids, you'd wear khakis and polos. You're wearing this goofy lingerie type gear because you want little kids to try to do that too. You're grooming them into a deviant lifestyle like yours. All right? Just don't even test me with that. So the groomers are arguing that it's the hate-filled Proud Boys that are the ones who are going to cause problems on Saturday, and they're praising. I've got an article here. They praise the police for promising to keep the hateful Proud Boys away from their children's event. Jack, I don't know what happened, but strip clubs, to my knowledge, have always been adults only. And drag shows, which are essentially the gay version of strip clubs, where they go out there again in sexually revealing clothes, do sexually gratuitous dances for tips, just like the strippers on the stage at Pinky's or whatever strip club there may be. Suddenly they're calling those children's shows. And if you push back against that, you're the bigot, you're the hater, you're the supremacist, you're the whatever it is they call the Proud Boys there that are trying to stop kids from being exposed to this sexually inappropriate material.
Fat Andy Ginther, the mayor of Columbus, called them extremists. So Fat Andy calls you an extremist if you don't want your kid to be exposed to some hairy butt shaken in his or her face by a cross-dresser.
Right.
Look, I don't give a rip.
And that's what they are.
Adults do on their own time. I don't care. Go
Same.
do it.
Same.
Do it to
Have
the
fun.
hilt. Do it. Get drunk emotionally on it. Here's what I'm going to come back to, and this is probably a rhetorical question, but I mentioned this earlier in the week during our Monday podcast. If you remember, I said, look, Xi Van Fleet, who is the woman from China that I think we're going to have on the show in the next week or two, she talks about red China, black China. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Brave, go to one of those other search engines, not Google, and do some searching on Red China and what happened and how the communists took over. And so what happens is they try to divide everybody down an ideological line to the point that the side that supports this Marxist or communist takeover outweighs what I'll call the sane people. And that's all I can chalk this up to is, it was masks, it's vaccines, it's MAGA, it's Trump, it's Republicans, it's LGBTQ, and it's science. I mean, look how everything is divided right down the middle, and you're either on this side or this side. So the goal is to get everybody aligned on this side so that we are now able to usher in this Marxist communist republic, this utopia that these people who are crazy enough to believe that they're going to be at the top of the food chain to benefit from want. If that's not the purpose, what is it? Because we know that your thoughts and your feelings drive your behavior, and your behavior ultimately gives you your results in life. So if the purpose of this, Bob, isn't to get people divided and to get more people on that one side of the scale to usher in Marxism, what are they trying to get these kids to think and feel and act? What is it? Is it grooming? Is it that they want these kids to be completely comfortable with adults acting as sexual deviants in their presence? Is that what they're really trying to do? And if they're trying to do it, Fat Andy, it's not okay. Don't call me an extremist because I don't want that happening in front of my daughter.
The answer to your question is yes to both of them. It is both of those things. It is trying to usher in an era of Marxism, of the first step of which is what? Break down and destroy the nuclear family. How do you break down the nuclear family? You turn kids away from their parents, and you turn kids toward this kind of deviancy and not the normal, everyday moralistic values that kids have been raised with in the history of this Western civilization. Secondly, the grooming is exactly for that purpose, to get more people on their side. You know what the LGBTQ community cannot do? They cannot reproduce. Because no matter how many times they want to tell you that a man can get pregnant, man can't get pregnant. Men can't reproduce and procreate with other men.
Can't breastfeed either, otherwise you wouldn't have a shortage.
Right. Women can't get with other women and reproduce either. So how do they grow their numbers? They grow them by
recruitment,
grooming them, recruiting them into their lifestyle as young kids For example, at these drag shows. That's what they do. It is absolutely an intention to grow their own numbers and, yes, pull the kids away from the parents to enable this. And by the way, you misspelled dystopia when you said utopia, because it really is the exact opposite of that. Now, I want to give you two quick things here, because this is important to know. While they defend this thing they're going to do on Saturday in Columbus, they don't want you to know about Brett Bloom or Blom. Brett Blom is a judge who judges these drag queen story hour events, judges the competitions. A judge with connections to the drag queen story hour was arrested last year on 7 counts of child pornography. Now, does that mean every drag queen is a child pornographer? No, it doesn't. But they don't know, because the LGBTQ community, particularly the T portion of that, was rooted in pedophilia. That's not me saying so. That is Johns Hopkins research saying so. That's the Ohio story that I'm going to tie there. And then this one, this is dated, this is current. No, it's not. Apologies. This is from 2019. It was brought up as if it was current because of this current thing. Houston Public Library admits registered child sex offender read to kids at drag queen story time. They opened the gates at the library to have these cross-dressers coming in there, ostensibly to recruit, but they say just to read to kids, and they have no earthly idea which of them are pedophiles and sex offenders. And they don't find out until after the fact. And they say, well, in our review and our process, we discovered we failed to complete a background check as required by our own guidelines. They damn well better be doing background checks anytime and every time they teach some grown man, or not teach, they allow some grown man to put on women's lingerie and go spend time with little kids. They doggone well better vet them. They're doggone well better background check them and make sure that there aren't kids who are going to be introduced to people who are going to now be familiar with them, and then use that relationship, that introduction, to start a relationship that turns into, there's that word they hate so much, grooming. And I just cannot believe that we have to have this disagreement that, I think the Babylon Bee said it best, Jack. The headline was attendance dwindles at drag event when name is changed to grown men in women's lingerie want to spend secret time with your kids. That's exactly right.
Bob, I'm just beside myself, man.
Hey, you want to hear it
in the wedding? Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, if you're struggling for something to say, I've got another follow-up here, but if you got something, go ahead.
No, so it doesn't mean, look, there are certain people who have predilections and perversions, and that doesn't mean that they're grooming kids and, they want to do inappropriate things with kids, right? But it certainly is the highway. So touche to your point, Whitney always talks about weddings, right? She's been in the wedding business for a long time, and she says, hey, weddings that have problems often have liquor involved. Not everyone, right? Not every time liquor is involved is there a problem at a wedding. But every time there's a problem at a wedding, liquor is involved, right? So it's like, it's not one of those things that it's 100%, but it certainly is a gateway. And it certainly is, a step closer to that heinous perversion than it is, if you're not practicing or immersed in that type of culture. So,
well, you say it's a gateway, and here's what's on the other side of that gate. All right, the gateway is when they're little kids and they're groomed to do this. Here's what happens when they get a little bit older. This one is current. This is a today tweet and story from Libs of TikTok. It's bad enough that drag performances for families are popping up all over the country with adults performing for children. But a New Jersey high school has taken it to the next level. The students are performing for the adults. This happened apparently last month on October 27th. Well, now it's December, so you get it. On October 27th, Hunterdon Central Regional High School in Flemington, New Jersey, did just that. A student club led by the faculty advisor, Heather Baldwin, held a student-performed drag show on school property in secret for adults. The event was brought to the community's attention 3 days after, when an email was leaked to the New Jersey Project, an organization that advocates for parents' rights. And here it is. The invitation Good morning. The Pulse students are putting on an invite only. Psst, this is your invite drag show in the Little Theater Block 5 today. If you would like to come and support the students in their efforts to create fun drag looks, please feel free to drop by and join us. This was sent to staff, not to other students. This says from Heather Baldwin to staff. So, grown adults, come and watch 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, our high school students, cross-dress and dance in sexually provocative ways for your entertainment.
So if
that's what's on the other side of the gate.
If a teacher took pictures that were sexually suggestive, right, or implied, stored those pictures on his or her computer, and let's say that the FBI decided to investigate one of them at some point, didn't understand that this event took place, do you think that they would be charged with the possession of child pornography?
I would hope so.
You're damn right they would. And this is going on in a school?
Yes.
Did parents know about this? Were they notified? Were the parents of these children notified that they were going to do this?
I am going to hope, for the sake of just a little bit of sanity, that every one of those students was over 18. Maybe they were all seniors. Maybe they're 18 or over, in which case they are legally consenting adults. But I doubt it. It didn't say that. It just said this is a high school and students involved in this club are going to be doing this dancing thing. Now, even if they were 18, it wouldn't change anything. But to what you said, if they had underage kids under the age of 18 and in sexually, provocative clothing, as you just pointed out, on their phones, yes, they would be charged with possession and perhaps trafficking and child pornography. And rather than have it on their phones, they had it in person. They had it in person so they could all stare at these kids and Lord knows what goes through their minds, and probably taking pictures too. This is in New Jersey. New Jersey, Flemington, New Jersey. Yeah.
No arrests.
No arrests.
No investigations.
Nope. Just complaints. Well, I mean, I don't know if there was a quote unquote investigation. There were complaints from. Let's see here. After the email. The last Monday, the Flemington Board of Education held a meeting with public comment heavily focused on the student drag show. Parents, staff, and residents took to the podium to express their concerns about the sexualization of children in the form of school-sponsored drag performances, while others commended the board on what they described as a beautiful activity. And then there's just a whole bunch of videos that I can't really play for you here of some people complaining and some people saying this is glorious.
I have no more comment on it, Bob. I'm gonna lose my fecal matter on it. I have zero stomach for it. I don't understand the beauty in it. I don't understand sexualizing. First of all, let's go back to something really important. Our frontal lobes don't develop until we're 25, 26 years old.
For men, like 27, yeah.
Yeah. So, we've talked about this on podcasts previously. We're allowing kids in schools as young as kindergarten and certainly up through their senior years, 18 years of age, right, to have conversations with school personnel about their gender, about any LGBTQ topic that they want to talk about. And in many cases, we're allowing the schools to crowd out the parents from these conversations, and we're allowing them to begin socially, right? So thinking and feeling precedes action. So we're allowing these schools to socially transition these kids to something that may be followed on by puberty blockers, hormones, surgeries that are irreparable. And we're doing it before they're even cognitively developed to do it. I have no stomach for it. It doesn't make sense according to the science, to the biology, or to logic. And this is the world that we live in today. I'm inclined to take Tom Wood's question about election integrity in Arizona because I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna say a lot of cuss words.
Maybe Monday. Yeah, maybe Monday we can do that because our hour's about up here. But I do want to read a couple of comments that are here on the topic. Tom Wyan says cats are evil.
Yes, they are.
Tell that to my wife. I married into a man. I got to admit, I grew up hating cats too because my mother and father hated cats. We had dogs. But when I married my wife, or actually when we first started dating, I said, "You have cats?" No. We married, and she had 2 when I married her, and it's been 22 years, and now we have 4 because they're all rescues too from our backyard or someplace. But I've grown to be able to tolerate cats, I must admit. But I am a dog person.
A great lesson in psychology. I'm convinced cats are narcissists and dogs are codependent. Dogs just want to make you happy. Cats are so aloof they don't give a rip if you want them there or not.
That is very true. That is very true. The difference between dogs and cats, but a dog's codependency, it's mutual. It really is codependency because people absolutely love their dogs. Bridget is back with, I think a better term than grooming is normalizing. That maybe in some cases they're trying to normalize the deviant behavior,
Sure.
but usually it's for the purpose of grooming the kid into perhaps participating in what they believe now is normal. That's what normalizing is. It's a step toward on the grooming scale, as far as I see it. I wonder if certain events are held by sponsors as an attempt to show the adults attending that their lifestyle is normal and should be accepted, and the kids are pawns. There's a lot of truth to that. Jeff just says this is sickening. Completely agree with that too. And some spam users got in here and said, "My hot photo here." My advice to you: don't click the hot photo. You're about to have your stuff stolen. That's it. Jack, maybe we'll hit the Arizona election integrity thing on Monday. It is a complete blank show out there, too. Katie Hobbs ran the election, and then she actually threatened to throw people in jail if they didn't certify the elections, despite all kinds of problems. That'll be another topic for Monday. So Monday, 7 o'clock, Thursdays, 7 o'clock. Those are our days we go live and we do the streaming thing and with your comments. And if you're listening to this after the live show on the podcast pages, share it, would you? If you got us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, if you liked it, share it, send it around. We're trying to grow this biatch, and I think you can help us do that. All right, Jack, we're talking smack. Good stuff. Appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Bob, God bless you. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you.